Welcome to my press meeting. Here is the English pre-briefing of my press briefing ahead of the European elections, where I present the 15 demands. The 15 demands I have to all the Austrian parties. 15 demands which need to be changed, and there are some taboos which must be broken in Austria, and some clarity must be given. Here is my demands. First of all, Austria to join NATO, the European Union to join NATO. We must be all united in the European Union, in NATO, in order to win this war which Russia has decided to wage against us. So this is the most important strategic unity of EU and NATO. This is also the next step for unification of the European Union. This must go on. Secondly, on the European trade policy, we must be very clear that we say yes to Mercosur, to a EU FTA, a free trade agreement with all Americas, with USA, the TTIP, and of course with ASEAN and with Australia and with all the free world ultimately. Also the enlargement of OECD, and these are very important strategic questions. When we decouple from Russia, we have to open to Americas and to the free world, and we must be much faster in that. And this is very important. And Austria is blocking that, and that's unacceptable. Then, of course, the EU enlargement. Here, of course, the NATO members must be prioritized, and Albania, North Montenegro, and Macedonia must be in the European Union together with Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, very fast, 2029. Only Serbia must be isolated until it returns. This is very important. Then here, the end of the Russian energy imports into the European Union 2024. Doesn't matter, nuclear, gas, oil, coal, nothing in. Actually, we should totally boycott Russian imports and ban them totally. This is a country which wages war against us, so we must be here very clear. So the end of Russian energy import, especially in Austria, especially gas, and here this has to be happening, and it's important. Then, of course, the development of the own domestic energy resources of Europe. And of Austria in that case. So we need a yes to nuclear energy, we need a yes to Hainburg hydropower, we need a yes to the gas reserves in Molln and in Lower Austria. Of course, we must lift our own domestic resources. Of course, we need coal power as well in this crisis, and we need to do it on a reasonable and good European level of environmental safety, but we need to also burn our domestic coals, especially in the big coal countries like especially Kosovo. To forbid coal in Kosovo is absolutely crazy. Yeah, we must, and then we destroy the environment in Siberia and corrupt the European political system with Russian energy imports, and also lose all this economic outflow by importing energy from Russia. This is absolutely crazy. This must end, and we must lift our own domestic resources. So then we need sufficient, I have put only sufficient, but in several publications I've now written how many tanks we need, and airplanes we need, and artillery ammunition, all these things we need to give to Ukraine for free and fast. And if we cannot produce it, then we have to buy it from the rest of the world. And the South Koreans or somewhere in Africa, there will be enough ammunition. We must pool the money. The Czechs have shown it's possible. We have not achieved it completely. We cannot rely just on America like the children. And that's absolutely necessary to win this war. There is the need for efficient levels of airplanes, tanks, and ammunition for Ukraine. Point number 7 is the opening of land Schengen for Romania and Bulgaria, and this before the European elections, obviously. This must also be done very clearly. Then this is the permanent opening of the labor markets of the EU for all EU 37. EU 37, it's very clear, that's Ukraine and Kosovo, and that's of course the UK returning, and we need the opening of the labor market for the European Union immediately and fully for all people who will be EU candidates, who are EU candidates from Ukraine, from the UK, as well from the UK, obviously, for all EU 37. Then we need more and better social integration, especially of the Ukrainians and Albanians in the European Union, of course of all EU 37 united. This is very important, and I will make a specific initiative here to work with the Ukrainian and Albanian minorities and Austrians in Austria to help them to better integrate and also to be active in the political life. Then we need number 10, yes to Eurobonds, and that's very important as well, that we have Eurobonds, that means common European debts, about 2,000 billion we will need for the victory, and that we have to achieve as well. That's number 10. Number 11 is a common European infrastructure investment for Ukraine and the Western Balkans, what we are gradually starting to improving and to do. But this is, of course, far below the level necessary. And these 2,000 billions need also to be for the payment of the infrastructure in Ukraine and in the Western Balkans and also in Romania, Bulgaria. So the infrastructure interconnectivity east must be massively improved. That's point number 11. Point number 12, the euro for Bulgaria and Romania. Bulgaria now again delayed, supposedly. Big defeat. We need, of course, the euro very fast. We need it even in Ukraine on the Kosovo model. We need it, of course, in Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, Sweden, Denmark. We need it everywhere. This is a point of unity, and that's the logical answer. And then we need also, of course, the nuclear rearmament of Europe with US nuclear weapons. So we have only 100 left over because we didn't like them very much, so we pushed the Americans to take them back. Now we need, of course, much more nuclear weapons from America. Poland is right to ask for that. The nuclear cooperation is absolutely necessary. There should be also nuclear weapons based in Austria, of course, ultimately in Ukraine as well. This is very important, and this is the way, because why we have not won this war is basically we are all too much afraid of the Medvedev's nuclear threats, and if that's the way our politicians and people are in that direction, so we must then also be very clear that we are ready to counter that, and then we need to improve our nuclear posture as well to deter further Russian aggression and also to end this war by putting nuclear weapons into Ukraine until the Eastern Front and the whole eastern flank of NATO must be secured by American nuclear weapons. And then we have, of course, a very clear offer for the UK to return to the European Union. This is also very important until 2029, and this must be clearly on the table. Here is how you can return with EU joining NATO, with nuclear rearmament, with victory against Russia, and of course with a free trade agreement with the United States, and of course with opening of our labor market for the British unilateral, and then also to discuss about the financial terms and everything. There must be enough on the table in order to allow for a new referendum. And then we have the break with Russia. We have also to analyze clearly that Russia is waging a war against us. We should also accept this war reluctantly, but also win it. And then we should also expel all the unnecessary Russian diplomats out of Austria and out of the European Union, and also work on analyzing the Russian role in the European Union in the last 20 years under Putin, who was on the payroll, who benefited, why this was done, and what we can somehow learn from it, and who must be prosecuted and who must be purged from the political system, because ultimately that's also very necessary to make a very clear cut here. Who was with Russia is out, who is against Russia is in, and Russia is out of Europe. And of course, then we have to discuss in a separate effort what we can really expect from Russia in the future. Is the democratic free Russia, is the ex-Russia to be expected? How can we assist the assisted breakup of Russia after the defeat? Because ultimately there's only victory or defeat for us and for them. And in case of defeat, then there will be also the end of the political system. And of course, that must be assisted. And that's why I called for many times already that the successor nations of Russia will have to be getting a status to the Council of Europe as observer, and then gradually to support them with the emerging independence of these new states to succeed Russia. Yes, the logical answer of all these tragic events of the last 10 years, and especially since the last 2 years, must be more Europe. More Europe is very much the answer to the Russian war of aggression. More unity of Europe is the answer, and of course that Austria cannot continue just the status quo ante, and this unsolidaric neutrality, the rejection of any meaningful help for Ukraine, the xenophobia, the reform rejection, and this is taboo, the nuclear weapons taboo, the coal taboo, everything is taboo, blah, 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 and Ukraine in NATO, taboo. This is not going to last, and we have to end our protectionism, our populism, our anti-Western direction, and this anti-science direction, and the pro-Putin politics is now coming to an end. This is what we need, and I call all the European parties, I'm also calling for the 4 parties which are pro-European, even the Social Democrats, the Christian Democrats, the Liberals, and also the Greens, and they should be supported. Of course, you should, and that's also my call, don't support the friends of Putin. They are, of course, not to be supported, obviously, because this is a vote for Putin if you vote the FPÖ. And then you really see there's also separate, I will also call for who is really to be supportive. On the Green, to have a preferential vote directly by the Greens for Kati Schneeberger, for Andreas Schieder for the Social Democrats, for Lukas Mandl for the Christian Democrats, and of course for Helmut Brandstätter for the Liberals, for the Neos. This is my recommendation from the Ukrainian, from the Kosovo perspective, from the European perspective, and this is my call for all these 4 parties to form a coalition against the FPÖ in the next parliamentary elections, but I will do a round of activities as well when it comes to the national elections in September. And this is now the beginning of my campaign for European Austria ahead of the European elections 2024, and I'm calling for everybody to participate and of course to vote for the pro-European parties and for these 15 points to be implemented by the Friends of Europe in Austria, and for a strong Europe, for victory, liberation, for you to join NATO, and for a strong partnership, an alliance with the United States economically, geostrategically, and in all aspects. We must be united with America in this struggle and war against Russia, which Russia has decided to wage against us, and we must win it. Thanks a lot for listening, and please, Austria, join NATO. Same for Malta, same for Cyprus, and for Ireland, and for Ukraine. This is the way forward, and the unity of Europe is decisive for the victory of our values and of our system in this war against Russia. Thanks a lot. Bye from Linz.